It's 7 p.m. Thursday, June 27th, here in Seoul.
And these are the top stories at this hour. President Moon Jae-in kicks off the G20 Summit in Japan by holding talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The two leaders exchanged views on bilateral issues, including Xi's visit to North Korea last week.
Washington's top North Korea negotiator Stephen Biegun arrives in Seoul a day ahead of talks with South Korea's top nuclear envoy Lee Do-hoon. The two will set the stage for South Korea-US Summit scheduled for this Sunday.
South Korean celebrity couple Song Joong-ki and Song Hye-kyo are headed for a divorce after a short-lived marriage lasting less than 2 years.
And with heatwave advisories being issued earlier than usual, questions are being raised as to whether we'll be in for the hottest ever summer this year. NEWSCENTER begins now.
Good evening and welcome to Arirang News Center. Live from Seoul, I'm Han Da-eun.
And I'm Noah Adam. Thank you as always for joining us this evening. We begin with President Moon's busy schedule. His 3-day schedule for the G20 Osaka Summit began with talks with Chinese leader Xi Jinping on North Korea. Among the key issues discussed was Xi's recent visit to Pyongyang. For more, let's bring in Arirang's Park Hee-jun, who is now at the South Korea Press Center in Osaka. Hee-jun, fill us in.
Sure. President Moon met with Chinese President Xi Jinping for around 40 minutes, ending at around 6:20 p.m. local time. And as expected, their talks focused on advancing the process of permanent peace and denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. You mentioned this, but the meeting is especially significant given Xi's recent visit to Pyongyang, where he met North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and discussed ways to further the two countries' partnership and maintain cooperation in nuclear negotiations. Take a listen to the two presidents.
지난주 주승리 취임 후 처음으로 북한을 방문하고 김정은 위원장과 회담한 등 한반도의 완전한 비핵화와 항구적인 평화 정착을 위해 건설적인 역할과 기여를 해주었기 점에 대해서 감사드립니다. 오늘 주승리로부터 방북 결과를 직접 볼 수 있는 그런 것을 뜻깊게 생각합니다. 오늘 주승리과의 회담을 통해 아까 말씀하신 대로 한국과 모든 국가 한반도 및 영내 평화 번영을 위한 긴밀한 대해서 시도를
China will push to advance bilateral ties with South Korea and contribute to maintaining peace and security in the region.
And after getting a better idea of Kim Jong-un's stance regarding nuclear talks, the South Korean president hopes to use that to better facilitate dialogue between Pyongyang and Washington. And that will begin with a summit with U.S. President Donald Trump in Seoul this weekend.
And Hee-jun, this is just one of the many diplomatic meetings to come. Tell us more about the rest of President Moon's schedule.
Right, so he's scheduled to hold face-to-face talks with his counterparts from Canada and Indonesia, as well as shorter meetings with the leaders of Argentina, the Netherlands, and India. But he's also scheduled to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin before heading back home Saturday. This is another important meeting to look out for because, as you may recall, Putin also met with Chairman Kim in Vladivostok back in April. President Moon may also be briefed on that summit, particularly on stance. Now, as for the possibility of talks between South Korea and Japan, there are no planned meetings as of now, but President Moon made it clear that he is open to last-minute arrangements to resolve the bilateral disputes over forced Korean laborers during the Japanese colonial era. So depending on Tokyo's decision, there may or may not be an informal meeting. I'll keep an eye on that and the other meetings from Osaka.
Our Park Hee-jun in Osaka for us tonight. Thank you. The G20 Summit of World Leaders will officially kick off in the Japanese city of Osaka for 2 days starting Friday. Nearly 40 representatives, not only from member states but also international organizations, are set to take part in this year's gathering. Our Kim Mo-kyun tells us more about the global event of high significance.
One of the largest and most important gatherings of world leaders, the Group of 20 Leaders Summit, will be held in Japan for the first time ever for 2 days beginning Friday. Formerly known as the Summit on Financial Markets and the World Economy, the G20 comprises of 20 countries that take up more than 80% of the global GDP. At this year's event, some 38 representatives from not only G20 member states, but also international organizations are set to take part. The meeting comes just 7 months after the gathering held in Buenos Aires last year. There will be 4 major agendas up for discussion, such as the global economy, innovation, inequalities, and environmental issues, including climate change and plastic waste. On the sidelines of the G20, world leaders are expected to engage in separate discussions to address their own national interests. Given the current geopolitical climate, the meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping set for Friday will be of particular interest amid escalating trade tensions between the world's 2 largest economies. For South Korea, the focus will zoom in on President Moon Jae-in's encounter with his Chinese, Russian, and American counterparts. The South Korean leader is expected to discuss ways to enhance cooperation with the 3 regional powers in supporting his peace drive on the Korean peninsula. Later on Saturday, President Moon will speak with President Trump in Seoul, where the American leader will make a 2-day pit stop before returning home to Washington. Host nation Japan, meanwhile, will hold separate meetings with each of the G20 member states on the sidelines of the summit, with the exception of South Korea. This may be the fallout of Tokyo's rejection of Seoul's proposal to establish a joint fund to compensate Korean victims of forced labor during Japan's colonial occupation of Korea. Kim Jong-ki, Arirang News.
U.S. President Trump has warned China that he'll impose even more tariffs if the 2 countries fail to reach a trade deal during his meeting with President Xi in Osaka. Speaking Wednesday on the Fox Business Network, Trump explained that his plan B with Beijing is to take in billions of dollars a month and do less business with China. However, he said the new tariffs could be 10% instead of the 25% mentioned before. Trump also took aim at Washington's other trading partners, such as Germany and Vietnam, describing them as, quote, abusers. The world will closely observe the U.S.-China trade talks at the G20, but North Korea issues are also expected to be at the center of the gathering's discussions. There's also growing anticipation of President Moon Jae-in could help kickstart the stalled nuclear talks. Our Cho Sung-min reports.
Dubbed the Denuclearization Super Week, the G20 Summit in Osaka kicks off this Friday with hopes of reviving nuclear talks on North Korea. During the G20, President Moon Jae-in is expected to focus on gauging where Kim Jong-un currently stands as he meets both the leaders of China and Russia. Chinese leader Xi Jinping met the North Korean leader in Pyongyang last week, while Russian President Vladimir Putin also held a summit with Kim in Vladivostok in April. Both are likely to deliver Kim's thoughts to President Moon, which Moon will use to take the lead in mediating between North Korea and the U.S. But he still has a lot of work cut out for him in finding ways to negotiate the North's nuclear disarmament.
In the talk between the U.S. and South Korea, the idea which came out commonly is that they have to come up with a big deal first. Then, in implementation level, there can be small talk-based negotiations. So these ideas are something that we have to take a look at whether 3 leaders can come up with any kind of commonizing ideas.
Presidents Trump and Xi will also meet. At the center of their hegemonic battle over trade tensions will be how China might leverage its recent interactions with Kim. Experts expect Xi to reassure his American counterpart that Chairman Kim is still willing to continue the nuclear talks.
North Korea's denuclearization will be just a small issue among other major ones, including the trade conflict. I don't think that alone will drive the momentum for denuclearization. But President Xi is likely to reaffirm that it supports the North's denuclearization and efforts to achieve that through dialogue.
It is unlikely that the G20 summit will provide a major turning point. But the sit-down between Presidents Moon and Trump in Seoul right after the G20 is expected to add new momentum on the diplomatic front pertaining to North Korea. Concrete results are more likely to be yielded from Pyongyang and Washington's working-level talks, but the general belief is that a united front between Moon and Trump could be enough to bring the North Korean leader back to the negotiating table. Cho Sung-min, Arirang News.
Following the G20 summit, US President Donald Trump will visit South Korea for a two-day trip. Trump has once again made clear he will not be meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, but as our Kim Yo-sun reports, they might be communicating in a different way.
President Trump says he has no plans to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during his visit to South Korea this weekend. Before leaving Washington for the G20 summit in Japan, Trump told reporters Wednesday that he may be speaking with Kim in a different form. He also stressed he will be meeting with a lot of people, but not Kim Jong-un. Trump elaborated a day earlier that he will meet with the North's leader at some point. When asked about whether the letters he has recently exchanged with Kim might lay the path for a possible third North-U.S. summit. President Trump will sit down with South Korean President Moon Jae-in in Seoul on Sunday and is reportedly planning to visit the demilitarized zone between the two Koreas, prompting speculation a third Kim-Trump summit could be arranged. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, ahead of Trump's visit here, Washington's top nuclear envoy is now in Seoul, and it appears his schedule doesn't include any meetings with North Korean officials. Lee Ji-won with more.
U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun arrived in Seoul Thursday afternoon, just days ahead of President Donald Trump. Biegun will first be meeting with his South Korean counterpart, the Special Representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs Lee Do-hun Friday morning. They'll be sitting down at 10 and finishing before lunch. The two are expected to discuss the latest developments on the Korean Peninsula and narrow down the denuclearization issues for their leaders to discuss when they meet later in the week. The two are also to meet again for dinner Friday evening. It's also reported that Biegun will be meeting with Seoul's Unification Minister Kim Yeon-chul later Friday at 5 p.m. Kim is expected to update Biegun on inter-Korean ties, including developments in Seoul's plan to provide 50,000 tons of rice to the north. Nothing else is known about who Biegun will be meeting in Seoul, but there's speculation that he could still visit the presidential office of Cheongwade, as he's always done. But with the top officials at the National Security Office, Chung Eui-yong and Kim Yeon-jong in Japan together with President Moon Jae-in for the G20 summit, it's not clear who Biegun could possibly meet there. Also this time, Biegun is expected to spend much of his time preparing for President Trump's visit, slated for Saturday and Sunday. So while there's been speculation that Biegun might try to get in touch with the North Koreans at the border village of Panmunjom, sources in Seoul speculate that it's not likely because the schedule is tight as it is. Biegun is to conclude his 4-day trip on Sunday when President Trump leaves. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
A senior official at North Korea's foreign ministry issued a statement this morning slamming the US for what he calls hostile acts and Seoul for acting as a mediator. Oh Jung-hee with the details.
A strong message of discontent from North Korea over America's, quote, hostile acts in Seoul's efforts to mediate. The official in charge of U.S. affairs at Pyongyang's foreign ministry, Kwon Jong-gun, issued a statement on Thursday. He urged the U.S. to change its calculations when it comes to the nuclear talks, saying dialogue won't resume unless Washington offers realistic measures that satisfy both sides. He stressed that the deadline is indeed the end of this year, and the North means it. The official denounced South Korea as well. Pyongyang and Washington are the two parties involved, he said, and they don't need Seoul to mediate. And despite Seoul's claims that dialogue is going on behind the scenes, he said that in fact, nothing is happening. The statement slams both Seoul and Washington in a fairly strong tone. It came on the very next day after the regime condemned the U.S. for continuing what it called hostile acts, referring to the recent extension of sanctions by another year. And the statement included a direct rebuttal to President Moon Jae-in's remark on Wednesday that North Korea and the U.S. are engaged in discussions behind the scenes about a third summit.
The content of the statement is very strong. The North outright rejected South Korea's role as a mediator and President Moon's remark. The timing of it also raises eyebrows. It showed distrust towards Seoul.
There are concerns that this statement might throw a wet blanket on what seemed to be nuclear diplomacy about to resume with the recent exchange of letters between Kim Jong-un and Trump. But the experts said that the door is still open for dialogue. Seoul's Unification Ministry didn't respond to the statement from the North. It said it'll keep being involved and continue efforts to resume dialogue as soon as possible between the two Koreas and between North Korea and the U.S. to achieve denuclearization and peace. Oh Jung-ki, Arirang News.
Shifting gears now, and the government has laid out changes coming in the second half of this year in terms of tax and benefits. Some key tax credits or cuts will stay in place or be increased, and there'll be a more inclusive benefit paid to families with young children. Kim Hye-sung reports.
The Finance Ministry's newly released report on policy changes for the second half of 2019 includes changes to 178 clauses from 33 government branches. In finance and taxing, the 30% cut to individual consumption tax on car purchases that began last July has been extended for another 6 months to help boost auto demand in the country. As a result, the tax will stay at 3.5% until the end of December. And welfare unemployment benefits will increase starting in July. The criteria for providing in-work income support for low-income households under the Earned Income Tax Credit system has been eased and will cover 3 million households from September, up from the previous 1.6 million households. Income support will increase more than threefold on year, reaching a total of more than $4 billion for the latter half of 2019. In education and childcare, the monthly $87 allowance per child that is currently given to those with children under 6 will be expanded to all children under the age of 7 from September. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
Heatwave advisories have come early in South Korea, which has people wondering if this year will be hotter than the last. Our Bucheon talked to an expert to find out more.
Since 2008, when South Korea's weather agency began to issue heatwave advisories, most of them came into effect in June. But starting in 2014, the month of May also saw days with heatwave advisories in place. That trend continued until 2017. In 2018, the hottest year on record here in Korea, the first heatwave advisories came into effect on June 1st. Now, for the first time in 11 years, heatwave advisories were put into place in Gwangju on May 15th, the earliest day of the year on record. Locals who recall last year's sizzling heat are wondering if we could see an even hotter year this time around. Some experts say the early heatwave doesn't necessarily mean it'll be hotter this year.
Full-scale summer heat starts after the monsoon front settles in, so any heat wave before the arrival of the front in May, for instance, can't really be an indicator of how hot it's going to be in the summer.
The expert adds that the country is unlikely to go through a prolonged heat wave this year.
Unlike last year when the rain front left early in July, the rain front will leave near the end of July this year, so the summer heat will start late and will not be as bad as the one we saw last year.
Experts say South Korea isn't alone in seeing heat waves arrive as early as May. Countries in Europe are also seeing early heat waves due to global warming caused by greenhouse gas emissions. Experts note that weather conditions in all regions across the globe are connected, so in the long run, many regions will see similar patterns of early heat. Bucheon, Arirang News.
The head of South Korea's Olympic organization, Lee Gi-heung, has been elected as a new member of the International Olympic Committee. He'll be looking to boost South Korea's influence in global sports diplomacy. Lee Seung-jae reports.
During the International Olympic Committee's 134th session in Lausanne, Switzerland, Wednesday, 10 representatives were named the latest members of the top Olympic organization in the world. Among the newest members is Lee Gi-heung, president of the Korean Sports and Olympic Committee. The 64-year-old joins the 2004 Olympic table tennis gold medalist Yoo Seung-min as the second South Korean sitting on the IOC's board. Lee also becomes just the 11th South Korean to be elected to the position in the history of the IOC. Lee earned his nomination for the position in late May, and the approval of Lee and the 9 other candidates was considered a formality. Each of the candidates needed to garner the majority of votes cast, and the newest South Korean member earned 57 of the 62 votes with 2 abstention. With his new position, E becomes one of 3 new members linked to their function within their national Olympic committees or a Continental Olympic Association. E is a veteran sports administrator who has served in a number of executive roles for multiple organizations, both domestic and international. He was the president of the Korea Canoe Federation from 2004 to 2009, vice president of the Asian Canoe Federation in 2007, vice president of the Asia Swimming Federation from 2012 to 2016, and president of the Korea Swimming Federation from 2010 to 2016. He also served as vice president on the organizing committees for the 2014 Incheon Asian Games and the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, 2 major international competitions hosted by South Korea in recent years. While his term is 8 years, he'll remain as the chief of South Korea's Olympic Committee during that period in order to maintain his IOC membership. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Competition is already reaching fever pitch for the upcoming 2020 U.S. presidential election. And a record number of Democrats battled it out on Wednesday at the first of 2 primary debates. Our Oh Soo-young tells us more.
The race is on to clinch the nomination for the Democratic Party's next presidential candidate for 2020. Some 20 Democrats are holding the first round of primary debates on Wednesday and Thursday local time, the largest number of primary contenders in modern political history.
There's a sense after the 2016 election that Hillary Clinton was kind of anointed and was the presumptive nominee for so long that no one else really had the chance to be able to challenge her. So you're seeing the Democrats kind of respond in a very extreme opposite direction, which is having 24 candidates really fight it out for the nomination.
To qualify for the third round of debates, candidates must receive at least 2% of public support in 4 major polls recognised by the Democratic Party. Funding is another hurdle. To qualify for participation in the third and fourth debate rounds, candidates must attract at least 130,000 unique donors, double the number required for the first 2 debates.
President Trump certainly was good at capitalizing on really big moments online and generate a lot of donations. But because there are so many candidates on the left, they're really struggling to find how to find that moment, how to capitalize off of that, how to raise money off of that, because no one candidate so far is able to garner all the attention and the momentum it takes to become the nominee.
Also, observers say the sheer quantity of candidates may not necessarily translate to strength in numbers for the Democrats, who need a strong and united agenda that can appeal to the broader public.
So I think you'll hear a lot of talk about Medicare, you'll talk a lot about climate change. Recently you've heard about tuition debt relief, student debt relief for different candidates. But that message probably is going to be a little bit forward to the left for most people in the United States. And so the messaging will have to change if they go to the national election against Trump.
Most polls indicate former Vice President Joe Biden is the frontrunner, followed by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who appear to be neck and neck. 6 of the Democratic Party's 12 debates take place in 2019. The first nomination ballots will be cast in Iowa in February. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Korean celebrity couples Song Joong-ki and Song Hye-kyo, both of whom have gained global recognition as huge Hallyu stars, have decided to part ways less than 2 years after tying the knot. The pair co-starred in the 2016 hit TV series Descendants of the Sun, and their marriage was widely labeled as the wedding of the century. Our Kim Da-mi reports.
What some called a fairy tale marriage of the perfect couple ended after only 20 months after Korean actor Song Joong-ki filed for divorce from actress Song Hye-kyo. Song Joong-ki's lawyer said on Thursday that his law firm is moving ahead with divorce proceedings on behalf of the actor at the Seoul family court. In a statement, Song apologized to his fans and said he hopes for a smooth and amicable split from the actress Song. He promised to repay his fans' support through great productions in the future. While he said it's difficult to share any details of his personal life, Song Hye-kyo's agency UAA Korea cited irreconcilable differences for the breakdown in the marriage. Rumors have been swirling about a rift between the couple after Chinese media reported that Song Hye-kyo had been spotted in public without her wedding ring on. Following the official announcement of their divorce, foreign media outlets including South China Morning Post and the Straits Times were also quick to report on the news of the so-called Song couple, which has shocked fans across Asia. Fans rushed to social media mourning the end of a once beautiful love story, but many commented that they will remain loyal and dedicated fans. 김다미, Arirang News.
An import goods fair is being held in Seoul where foreign manufacturing companies can get a chance to meet Korean buyers face-to-face. Her Ko Ryun-hee was there.
Consumer goods manufacturing firms from 78 countries gathered in Seoul on Thursday to meet with potential buyers in Korea. At the event hosted by the Korea Importers Association, almost 200 booths were set up, and participants from around the world had a chance to introduce various products from food to cosmetics.
So Korea is the same landmass as our country in Papua New Guinea. However, you have 51 million people. We have 9 million. So it's in terms of just the scale of population and the market demand, it's a big challenge for us to try and enter into this scale of market.
And for buyers, it was a rare opportunity to experience potential imports, which can be introduced to consumers by them directly or through distribution companies.
There are many processes when importing products, such as documentation, communication, and discussing distribution methods. So meeting potential business partners in person to talk about these issues saves time and money.
The event wasn't just about business-to-business meetings. It also held seminars featuring experts related to know-how in imports, distribution, and sales. Organizers say encouraging imports is important because efforts are being made to eliminate trade imbalances around the world.
In terms of imports, Korea is the 9th biggest buying power in the world. I hope this event can provide foreign companies with opportunities to learn more about the Korean market. Also, we believe that more imports will lead to more exports.
The import goods fair runs through Saturday in Seoul, and the entrance fee for visitors is a mere $5. Ko Ryun-hee, Arirang News.
Asia's largest fantasy film festival is underway for its 23rd run. This year's Bucheon International Fantastic Film Festival will show 288 films from 49 countries, with 191 of those films making their premiere in Bucheon. There are also 2 categories of awards up for grabs. International films are competing for the Bucheon Choice Awards, while local films are vying for the Korean Fantastic Selection Awards. The festival will run until July 7th.
President Moon Jae-in has appointed Kim Jong-un as the new commissioner of the National Tax Service. He will assume his new post tomorrow. In a confirmation hearing yesterday, Parliament approved his nomination, saying Kim has the necessary expertise and ethics required for the position. Overseas investment by Korean manufacturing firms is now more than double the figure for domestic spending. The Korea Economic Research Institute claims this has wiped out as many as 417,000 potential jobs in Korea. Overseas investment by the companies increased by 13.6% over a 10-year period from 2009. Facility investment in Korea during the same period was just over 5%. Starting next month, dementia tests will be cheaper in South Korea. Locals will pay as little as a third of what they pay now at local hospitals to determine if they have dementia. For those who are diagnosed with the illness, it will cost them around a quarter of the current price to find out which type of dementia they have. South Korean food maker Bucheon says its kimchi products are now for sale at Walmart stores across the United States. They are being sold at nearly 4,000 Walmarts and over 1,000 public stores. The growing popularity of kimchi among American consumers is what helped Bucheon partner with Walmart. That has been your 3-minute news flash. It is that time now where we take a look at some of Arirang's digital media content.
And today we take a look at another episode of Choreator by Vanessa from New Zealand.
Hello everyone, it's me Nessie from Dear Nessie here. Come join me on my adventure. I already did. Hi, 맛있어요. Check it out. I actually came to Korea as an exchange student. I was studying abroad at Seoul National University. Finish class! Korean culture, language, food. Oh my gosh, the food. 맛있어요. And fashion, music, makeup, etc. We are here for Fashion Week and let me show you. Look at these kids. I had the best time of my life and here I am, 1 year later, continuing to share bits and pieces of my life and experiences in Korea. Just walking around the streets of Seoul, it is possible to just bump into idols. K-pop idols and actresses are people that you just see through your computer screen, through your phone screen, that you follow on Instagram, that you watch on YouTube. So being able to bump into idols, it feels so strange to me, especially around this time of the year. It's university festival season and all of the Korean universities hold their own festivals where they invite K-pop idols to perform on stage. So good, I'm telling you. One of the most memorable experiences for me personally would definitely be to collaborate with Chungha. 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. Wow, I met Chungha. She's so pretty. Nice to meet you. You're so pretty. Oh, thank you. Last year, I actually got invited to her showcase and got to meet her and talk to her backstage. Other memorable experiences include all of the trips that I took with my friends. Coming in. It's so pretty. Oh my god. My two favorite places out of those would definitely be Busan and Jeju-do. I love the seaside cities and I love the beaches there. The seafood is so delicious, so nice and relaxing. One more thing that I want to talk about would be Korea's cafe culture. I absolutely love cafe hopping and Korea is basically like the cafe hopper's paradise. There are just so many different themes and concepts and there's new cafes opening every single day. Rainbow, this rainbow is what we came for. So Instagrammable, like you cannot stop taking photos. Everyone should just visit Korea to cafe hop. I'm going to cut this video here. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you around. 안녕.
The monsoon rain has briefly paused here in Seoul, but it's left us hanging under heavy cloud cover today.
To find out when the monsoon rain might return, let's turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle.
Good evening, guys. Now, the monsoon front is expected to be held back until Friday, as much of the rain cloud drifted out into the East Sea. And we are seeing some very uncomfortable weather today as the humidity has risen after the rain. Tomorrow is expected to stay sticky as well with hot temperature readings during the day. So I suggest you go easy on yourself as you might get exhausted very easily. Now, going over to our readings in detail, the morning lows will all begin in the 20s, with Seoul kicking off to 22 degrees Celsius. Under gloomy skies, the mercury will rise, with Seoul topping out to 29 degrees, and Daegu at 30 and Gyeongju at 28 degrees. Now keep in mind there may be chances of some sporadic showers in the east. And the monsoon front will travel back up towards the peninsula this weekend, bringing widespread rain on Saturday. Then over on Sunday, the rain will be focused over only in the southern provinces, but unexpected showers could wet the upper regions as well. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That will do it for this edition of Arirang News. Thank you as always for watching.
News in Depth is next.